Well, we are coming to you live from Best Ever Conference in Salt Lake City. This is another episode of Lessons into Blessings in Real Estate. And I have with me today Lauren Breichel from Elevated Equity. Make sure I get that.
Equity Elevated.
Flip it. Equity.
Close.
Equity Elevated. And, for those people that don't know what BEC is, it's the Best Ever Conference. It happens every year. A lot of LPs and GPs, general partners, come together to talk about all sorts of different asset classes, about raising capital, about what's working, what's not working in kind of this private fund space. And so no better time to sit down with this woman guru here who has jumped into the real estate and the private equity kind of consulting space, consulting on capital raising, and really helping people to understand the relationship they have with their investors and raising capital for these types of deals. And so there's two sides of the space. There's the limited partner who's understanding, okay, who am I investing with? And then the general partner, the operator, and person who's raising the capital, raising funds from investors, and really being responsible and being able to really target who they're looking for, right? Because every operator is not for every investor. And so just being able to find the right pieces. So for our guests, can you just kind of tell a little bit about what you do, kind of how you got started?
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah.
So I used to be a capital raiser, and that kind of transitioned me to where I am today. So today I help GPs and fund managers, primarily in the real estate space, but in other private equity sectors as well, figure out how to raise more capital through the proper tech stacks and marketing channels and funnels.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's, a lot of people just think, oh, capital raising is just like, oh, you meet some people and you ask people for money and things like that. What do you believe is like the biggest misconceptions about raising money?
I think there are a lot of misconceptions, but the top ones are that raising capital is inexpensive and it's fast and it should be easy. And really, capital raising can turn into a business within the business. It truly is a whole full-time function. And if you're raising tens of millions of dollars, it really needs its own kind of focus as its own business entirely.
Yeah, because it really is a business
It
and it
is.
takes a lot of energy. As a person who does it, right? It takes a lot of energy and time. And I think there are, there's misconceptions on the GP side and then there's misconceptions on the LP side of like, oh, you guys just do this all the time. What do you think the most biggest limited partner or investors who's investing into these what do you think their biggest misconceptions are?
I think their biggest misconceptions, the LPs, is that all the GPs are great. They have great deals and they know exactly what they're doing.
Right.
Yep.
So it's so important to really be able to find that right match of, the partnership, right? And it truly is a partnership. It really takes alignment in aligning what, not only a values alignment, but also alignment of, okay, from a goal standpoint, what, can this person meet what I'm trying to attain at the same
Yes.
time? From your experience, you see a lot of GPs or operators in this space. What do you think is one of the biggest things that you see, like, man, missteps that they make when it goes about just starting the process of raising investor funds?
I think a lot of people take the spray and pray method to raising capital. They don't really understand who they're trying to target. They just throw out some marketing and hope that the investors are going to come right towards them.
Yeah.
And that's usually just not how it works.
Yeah.
You need to be a little bit targeted on your messaging, who you want to invest with you, where you're going to find them. If the deal type that you've got matches what your avatar wants,
Yeah,
right?
that's
So that's a
good.
big piece of
Yeah,
it.
that's good.
And so I think a lot of people just throw out a LinkedIn post or throw out an email to everybody that they have on their list, and that might not be the right target for them. And then they get frustrated, say, gosh, nobody responded or nobody
Yeah.
actually placed capital there.
Yeah.
And it's usually because they didn't do enough research into who they're trying to target and making sure that audience actually matches what they're offering.
Yeah.
And just taking a little bit more time up front to really get that piece right.
That's good. That's good. How do you kind of, and obviously this is part of why people would hire you, right? But what do you like recommend? Like, hey, I want to find my tribe. I'm new to this space. I really, a lot of people think it's sexy, right? It's not sexy to manage other people's money. I could tell you that
Right.
now, right? It's a huge responsibility in that. But what do you kind of recommend if somebody's trying to find their tribe, their people of, who they're looking for? What are some of the kind of high level advice you would give them?
So there's a couple different ways to look at it. Some people have a past. Some people have a past career, say, right? They might have been in medical sales, for example. And so they know a lot of medical sales professionals. They say, you know what? They could benefit from these investments. I know kind of their keywords, their trigger points, why they would be wanting to invest here. And so I'm going to build an avatar off of them because A, I know a lot of them. I can tap into that network and I understand them because that's who I used to be.
Yeah.
So that's one way to do it.
Yeah.
Another way to do it is just to pick a couple, right? Say, you know, I've got these deals. They're a little bit more on the higher risk side. Maybe they're development deals.
Yeah.
Okay, now what type of person would potentially want that? Maybe a high earner, younger person who has a little bit more time to take on that risk.
Yeah.
They don't need cash flow to retire. So then, okay, who are those types of people? And put them into boxes and kind of build off of that.
Yeah.
And then the third type is, you know, sometimes people say, gosh, I have no idea. I don't have a background. I've been doing real estate on my own for 20 years
Yeah.
and I just want to, you know, grow and bring in other people's money. Okay, great. Well, let's use you as the avatar. Let's write down you as the persona that we're going to go find more of.
Yeah.
So that can be the third way to approach that.
I love the you part, right?
Yeah.
Because even when I think about the people that I'm trying to attract, it's like, man, I didn't even know private funds was a thing, right? And so
Yeah.
like how can I, communicate that to my community, the people that that want to grow, that want to, and just never been taught these tools and never been taught. So it's, I love that part. It's just finding more yous and how do you find them? Like, where are the watering holes where these people
Yep.
exist, right? And a lot of that is just, in certain circles and things like that I'm a part of, and just being more intentional about it. So that's really good.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to the limited partner that, or the investor that's trying to find that right GP, right? So almost flipping it a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, well, how do I find my person as an operator? But how do investors find their right match?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. So I would say it's a similar process, but diving more internally. So if you're an investor, start with your goals. What are your goals? How much capital do you want to invest? Why are you investing? What kind of risk profile is going to fit? And then dive deeper into there. Okay, so you can Google syndicators, and there's going to be 5 different databases that come up, right? Invest Clearly, or GPLP Match, or Passive Pockets. There's going to have a whole database of different syndicators.
Yeah.
So once you write down, okay, this is the asset class I think I want, or maybe here's the 2 or 3. Here's the type of deals I'm looking for: the value add, the development, the debt fund. Then you can kind of pare it down when you go into those databases to look for people. The thing I like about Invest Clearly, for example, or something like that, is they have real investor reviews. So you can say, okay, I don't know these operators yet, but at least I'm seeing verified reviews so I can know to stay away from them, to go
Right.
forward with them, to at least have
Yeah.
that second step of that conversation directly with them. So I think there's so many great resources on the internet. Once you figure out and sit down, looking for what you want and what you need that's
Absolutely.
going to fit your goals.
Absolutely. I'm big on, investors, especially I do a lot of education as well, and just, investors being very clear on what their goals are, and really also understanding their risk threshold, because there's a million and one type of private deals, a million and one operators in all of these different asset classes. And so it's in a values alignment. It's how are they going to meet my goal? It's what is my risk, my true risk threshold? Because
Right.
some people are like, oh, that's such great returns. But it's like, yeah, but are you willing to lose X, Y, and Z? And are you understanding how that particular operator is managing the risk
Right.
on a deal? So that's really good. What has been your experience in just being on the flip side of looking at, to invest in deals? I don't know. Have you invested on the limited partner side?
I have.
Yeah.
Yep. I only invest passively. I don't invest actively.
Yeah.
I've seen both sides. And I don't want any part of that operation.
Well, that's good because you're the best right hand partner for
Exactly.
people who are active. So
Yeah. So so what I look at and what I look for is, I do really look to my peers who have invested and had experiences with these operators before, to really know what it's like inside of the operation or over the last 5 years of their
Yeah.
performance,
Yeah.
right? Because it's so easy to get sidetracked by a really nice pitch deck or really great marketing and educational material. And that's easy to say, gosh, that looks really professional. They must be awesome at,
Yeah.
operating these deals. But that might not be the case once you really dive in and you look at the historicals and you actually ask the investors who have been with them for a while, how have they performed? Have they been distributing on time? Have they been sending out quarterly reports when they say they're going to?
Yeah.
And so I like to tap into networks and do a little bit of a deeper dive there before I place capital.
Yeah, no, that's good. In arming the GP, and just from your, what's what are the things that in working with you as an active general partner, how do you help your clients find those blind spots that they're not seeing, right? Like, how do you arm them?
Deal wise,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So I look at it hundreds of different deals a year. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm able to look at it from a different perspective that's not siloed within their operation and say, hey, this preferred return is not in the average realm that investors are expecting right now. Or hey, let's move around your pitch deck so that people are seeing the things they need to be seeing first, second, and third.
Mm-hmm.
So just simple tweaks can make a huge difference when pitching deals or putting together deals. Or they might say, hey, what kind of split should we be throwing out there? Well, it's like, okay, on average, here's what we should be expecting for this type of deal, this type of risk profile. And so I just take that knowledge that I bring in from just constantly looking at deals into their operation to say, we can tweak this a little bit. This is a non-negotiable. Okay, that's fine. We can work with that. But
Yeah.
it's just always looking around and seeing what's happening and seeing really what their competitors are doing because
Yeah.
these investors have lots of options. And to be consistent with what everyone else is offering, you need to be in the know. You need to
Yeah.
understand what
Yeah.
what else is out there
So
that
it's
they're
almost
looking
like
at.
you're finding their superpower, or finding what makes them stand out from the crowd, and just being able to highlight that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
everyone's got a superpower
Yeah.
and everyone's got a great unique deal, but it's highlighting that and then making sure it's still aligned and within the metrics
Yeah.
to what other investors are looking at.
Yeah. That's good. You're talking about a little bit of alignment. We still tap on that. What do you believe true alignment actually looks like between sponsors and investors?
That's a great question. I think alignment on transparency, communications, deal specifics, and expectations are the
That's
top
good.
things.
Yeah.
Um, the transparency and the expectations kind of go hand in hand
Yeah.
because if you're transparent about the expectations on the front end, there should be no misconstrued expectations on the back end or
Understood.
during the project while it's
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah.
So that's a big piece. A lot of people might not be as transparent or open about, hey, here's exactly what's going to happen. We don't expect cash flow for 3 years. They might just kind of brush that off because it's harder to raise capital for
Yeah.
something like that, right?
Yeah.
But it's super important so you're not getting a call in 2.5 years with angry investors saying, where's my cash flow, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Transparent about expectations is big. Communication is huge. As you're looking to place capital, understanding and asking those questions on the front end. When are you communicating? Can I have your cell phone number to text you if I have a question?
Right.
Are you actually going to answer that call?
Right.
That's a big piece there as well. So,
Yeah. Because I mean, everything looks pretty when the deck is done and before money is
mhm.
taken, but really that after, how you're managing your investors afterward is very critical. And I mean, it's always good to have kind of someone that have dealt with that particular operator or general partner, just so you kind of have a understanding, okay, how they handled you. And everybody's expectations are different. I always say that recommendations, I always try to find the why behind a recommendation, because your reason why you like a person might be different than the reason why I'm searching for it.
Mhm.
So just getting a little bit more clarity and context when you are asking people, like, well, why do you like that operator? Or why do you like that particular general partner, right?
Mhm.
And so that's good. What's one thing you've heard during the conference that you just, in your space on the capital raising side, things that have shocked you, or things that are like, oh man, I can't believe this is happening and this is kind of impacting the space of raising capital? Especially in these times, right, where it's
Mhm.
been really tight and the market has been, it's just been interesting, right? It's been painful for some people, right? So,
Yeah.
what do you think is like what you've been hearing, or just what you've been seeing, and it's like, man, this could have been avoided if X, Y, and Z.
Yeah. I don't know if I have anything that I would say could have been avoided if X, Y, and Z, but the
Mm-hmm.
two biggest things I've seen, one is just the use of AI, right? That's a huge thing. Obviously, that's nothing new, but that's been a topic of conversation here um, that I think everyone needs to pay attention to and learn how to utilize because it's important. It really can help, and your competitors are using it, so you might as well jump on
Yeah,
board.
yeah,
And then the second thing is the fund of funds or the capital aggregators. Obviously, they've been around,
yeah,
right? I used to raise capital from fund of funds 5, 7 years ago. That kind of was popular and then it died a little bit. And now it's really popular.
yeah,
And so I think if that's part of your strategy and that's something that you're interested in, that's really making a resurgence,
Mm,
which is great. I mean, you can tap into other people's networks as long as you trust them and they trust you, and everyone's got alignment,
yeah.
especially on
Alignment is
expectations
key,
there.
right? For sure.
Then that's a great way to raise more capital
Yeah.
from other people's networks.
Yeah. And I would say, even with that, like, probably the same way in finding your tribe and finding your partners is doing that same, similar due diligence
Hmm.
to make sure there is alignment there and making sure you understand the clarity of terms and what this looks like
Yes.
and all that, how is it structured and all those good
Uh
things.
huh.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good. Well, this wouldn't be lessons into blessings because that's what we call it, right? I'm a believer that, even though, I mean, this is a real estate game or, private equity, whatever you want to call it, there's going to be lessons, there's going to be trials, there's going to be challenges all along the way. It's all about how you make the best of it. Is there any, looking back at your journey, is there anything lesson that you've learned, something that was difficult or challenging that has turned into a blessing in your career and your journey now? So something that man, in the moment it was like, "Oof, we're doing this, like, okay," or, that was a flip, but it's ultimately led to being a blessing now through what you're doing.
Gosh. Yeah. First thing that comes to mind, and I'm sure there are different examples that are probably better, but first thing that comes to mind is when I was writing my book. I started it and I said, "Yeah, book sounds great, no problem. Probably easy." It was not easy. It took me like 6 months longer than I thought it was going to. Um, so that was a lesson for sure. I
Yeah,
did not expect to be so challenging. But now it's a blessing because it's a great tool. It's helped a lot of people.
yeah,
Now they can take it and run with it for their capital raising
yeah,
journey. But that was a huge lesson that, you know, not everything is as easy as we think it's going to be. Even with all the tools we have at our fingertips these
yeah,
days,
yeah,
it was quite the intensive process. So
yeah.
yeah,
But it's a benchmark, and you had the time to really focus and really thoughtfully think out how you wanted to be able to deliver that message.
yes,
And so I'm sure it arms you now and just being able to speak and deliver and give people, the tools to be able to help them kind of progress. So,
absolutely. Yeah.
well, how can people get a hold of you? Tell people how, they can reach out if they want to link up.
Yeah. So you can find me on LinkedIn or any of the socials at Lauren Bryshell, or equity-elevated.com is my website.
Awesome. I love it. Well, thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
And I hope you're enjoying the conference. But until next time, we'll talk to you later. All
Thank
right.
you.
Stay blessed.